So a few weeks ago, we did a video with the D2 dagger where Jack basically stabbed me in the head a bunch of times. All right, so as much fun as that was, we received about 25,000 views, give or take, and there were a number of comments that I'd like to address. This is going to be focusing on mindset, tactics, and general gear setup. So let's get into those questions now. Some of the questions or the comments that were brought about were talking about Jack and his skill level and all these other things. I kind of like to get that out of the way first. First off, Jack Nevils is a retired Green Beret, and he has a lot of combat experience, mainly focusing on CQB and direct action, hence one of the reasons why he is the lead on that video. Some of his military awards are the Purple Heart, the Legion of Merit, and a Bronze Star with Valor. To say that he's the real deal would be an understatement. I've known him since 1998, and I have been working with him on and off for the last almost 2 decades. And his breadth of knowledge for this topic is unparalleled. If you want to find more about him, then you can head over to theredeployed.com, and that is his training site where he trains law enforcement and military. I just want to cover that right out the gate because questioning his background or experience level is just based off of ignorance. And that may be my fault because I did not actually present him in the video and talk about his background in depth. So question 1, what keeps the guy from grabbing your knife? This was stated a couple different ways. One of the other ones was ring knives are fast, but it only takes one finger for the opponent to draw that knife and now they have it in their hands. Here's the thing, when you carry any tool, any weapon, when you bring that to the fight, you need to be as proficient as possible in the use of that tool or weapon. But one of the other things that has to be applied is you need to be competent in your weapons retention. So anything that you bring to a fight can be used against you if you are not competent enough to make sure that the asshole that you're trying to do damage to can't take it away from you. And so yes, if that person were to reach and grab that knife off of his chest, he could use that against Jack. But the thing is that one, you know where it's at because he told you where it was at. Normally, these situations would happen in fairly limited visibility, meaning it's going to be dark. It's not going to be a blue blade. It's probably going to be something that camouflages a little bit into his vest. So it's not the easiest thing to spot. And then the other thing about that is in order for me to grab towards that knife, I would have to let go of the carbine, in which case that would allow him to maneuver in one direction or the other and then shoot my ass. So the idea that I am going to stop from grabbing the carbine and controlling the carbine, which was the initial threat, and then try to grab something that's on his body probably isn't going to be the first thing that comes to my mind. You can run these drills a number of different ways, and a lot of times what happens is if the person that is executing the technique is competent enough, he's going to get to one of the tools that he knows that he has on him, and he is a professional, and so he actually has the ability to draw and deploy and use that weapon a lot better than some unknown asshole that just comes upon him in an altercation. If the other guy is more competent at drawing your knife, then you have a problem with your training and you need to be training more. This also transfers over to civilian carry. If you carry a pistol and you do not know how to wrestle or grapple or stop somebody from getting to your pistol, then you might need to address that skill issue. The thing is that your ability to deploy your weapon in all instances is one of the requirements if you are to competently carry, regardless if that is a pistol, a knife, or a hammer of some sort. The idea is that it's your weapon, you use it, you're efficient, and you can also stop somebody else from taking it from you. All right, so question 2 is going to be, why not pull the pistol while retaining the carbine? First off, the whole reason for the video was to highlight the dagger and the placement in the center of the chest so that you can grab it with both hands and having a quick access to retain your carbine. And then 2, There is no technique that is going to fix all different scenarios. And so the way that that scenario was kind of set up, the idea of him going to his pistol may be an option for him. But at the very beginning, I was off to an angle, in which case, in order for him to draw his pistol and rotate that directly around, may not have been the most ideal scenario for him. Once again, as a professional, he has run all of these types of drills, and he is going to access the tool and use the tool that's best for that scenario. The other thing is that just because grabbing a pistol may be the most opportune thing, there are other reasons why you wouldn't draw a pistol. First off, rounds go through people, and so if you are in a CQB environment and your team is directly all around you and you've been spun up against a wall, you drawing your pistol and just starting to randomly shoot through somebody might not be the most ideal scenario for those that are directly around you. And the next thing is I'm not sure how many of you are going to truly admit this, but how many knives did he actually have on him? And how many options did he have based off of his setup? And so if you were to look again, the thing is that yes, he had his carbine, he had his pistol, he had the dagger that's directly in front of him. On his right side, in front, on the pocket, he had an Emerson knife that was directly in front. And then on the left side, right behind his pistol mag, he had an MDV fixed blade. And so at any point in time, if he realized that grabbing center mass is not going to be the best choice, he would have drawn his knife and stuck it in my neck from his right side, or drawn the MDV and stuck it in my eyeball with the left side, or drawn the pistol and just, shot me from there. The thought process behind the weapons retention is to get that person off of you as efficiently as possible. In the video that we were working on, we were focusing on a tool that you can grab right or left-handed and to work in. Just throwing it out there. I've done force on force with Jack a number of times, and especially earlier on when I didn't train with him as much, we played the game of, can I stop him from actually getting two weapons? And I will tell you, those knives on his right, left, and center, they tend to insert into your neck before you even realize what the fuck is going on. And so it only takes once. And unlike some of you that are sitting there watching it from the front to back and going, well, there's a mistake there and there's a mistake there. Unfortunately, when you're doing this live, you only get one shot. There is no redo. So the thing is that yes, in a real scenario, that might be an option for him to transition, or I might be able to lock something up. But the thing is that his experience and his ability to transition to a different weapon system to accomplish the exact same goal is much higher than the average person's ability to stop him. Once again, that's his realm, that's his area of expertise, and therefore you would imagine that he would be more competent at doing that. Going back to you, if you carry a weapon, then you should be more proficient than the person that is trying to stop you from accessing that weapon, or you're so good that there is no ability for them to grab that weapon or interfere with what you need to use it for. All right, so I don't have a screenshot of the third statement. What happened was I answered it, and then when I tried to look for it, it seems that the individual just deleted their whole comment. Basically what it said was, he obviously has no judo or jiu-jitsu background, because the positioning that I was in would allow him to just hip throw me, and that would be a better strategy than accessing the blade. Or he could have kneed me in the groin. So a couple things on that. Comments like this kind of highlights the ignorance to the overall scenario. So techniques are adopted and tested and trained, but they're not done just in a vacuum. This is a very small part of the CQB environment that could possibly happen. And so the idea that you are just thinking about the most ideal technique for somebody to grab your carbine and not take into consideration all of the tactics that apply to CQB direct action means that you are not being a professional in your advice to somebody else. Normally, when somebody is to engage in this scenario, you're trying to flow into the room, and usually that happens at the doorway or just before you get into the doorway. There are a number of other ways that somebody could actually access or stop you from utilizing your carbine. But the thing is that continuing the flow into the room and making sure that you have as many guns in the room as possible is very, very important. And the thing is that for him to throw me at that direct encounter is probably not going to yield the best results because it's going to stop that flow going through. So the whole entire idea is for him to do something that's quick, efficient, and then in turn get me the fuck out of the way, and maybe the next guy shoots me in the face as I start to move around. The other thing is that throwing somebody when you have kit on is, one, not as easy as it seems. You try to put 50 pounds of kit on and, try to wrestle with somebody and see how easy that is. And then two, in the 1980s, 1970s, traditional martial arts were very, very popular to add to curriculum for military units. And a lot of times what happened was people would train in these martial arts and they would be excellent techniques on the mat when you don't have gear on. And then you learn lessons like gear gets entangled when you do hip throws or anything that pulls somebody really close to you. And what happens is you throwing somebody effectively is cool and all. It's not cool when somebody is attached to you, almost behind you, because you chose to do a throw that your hip has to lock into them and then your shit got locked in. And then now the original questions come into play a little bit more because you're trying to disengage from them, they're behind you, and now they can access all that shit that you have on you. It's just not a smart play. The other thing is that the question of kneeing somebody in the groin, first off, blunt trauma to the groin does not cause immediate pain. There's a numbing sensation. And for the majority of men that are watching this, you probably know this. You get hit in the groin and you're like, oh, fuck, this sucks. And then in turn, what happens is your abdomen starts to tighten up and then there's pain there, right? But there's a couple seconds there. There's a couple seconds for that person to actually do a lot of damage. It's one of the reasons why I don't advocate it for women to knee somebody in the groin as an initial defense. The meaning, because what happens is if you knee me in the groin and the pain does not stop me and does not drop me immediately, and it's about 2 seconds for the pain to actually hit me, I'm going to hit you as hard as possible. And then while I'm bent over, you're going to be recovering at the same time. The thought process that knee is going to be more effective than him sticking the knife through my eye socket is a questionable thing. And then you start getting into a number of different scenarios where maybe the groin is protected. Like Jack usually has some sort of soft armor that drops directly in front of his groin for shrapnel and that type of thing. The whole purpose of presenting techniques like this is for you to think in a different manner. Why are we going towards the blade? Why are we using vital targets immediately? Why is that the thought process? Why don't we go to traditional martial arts? And on the traditional martial arts question, Jack has over 4 years of wrestling. He also has 4 years of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu experience, as well as all of the other things that he has done in the military. And so his ability to actually throw my ass is probably high enough that if that was a valid thing to do, then yes, he would. And in combat, he has stated that he has used a throw before, but it is not a hip throw. Maybe that's something I'll talk about later on. All of these techniques obviously work. I've already stated that Jack stabbed me in the face a bunch of times during our actual force-on-force encounters. He's very efficient at it. But the thing is that you just transitioning to some sort of martial art that you've learned prior to and thinking that it applies in this world is not really realistic. All right, so in conclusion, I'm pretty happy that the video did really, really well. I understand where everybody's coming from in some of these comments. I apologize if I come off a little bit harsh with some of the answers. I get a whole bunch of people that speak from a sense of authority, and it's like, we're not talking about just a surface level understanding of this environment. We're passing on this information because these are things that have been passed on to individuals that have used these techniques, and it has been pressure checked. And so we can have great debates going back and forth as far as what is efficient and what is not. Always remember that there is no one way to do anything. There are a lot of different ways to apply techniques and get past this type of a grab, and a multitude of different scenarios. The thing is that you try to pass on what is efficient, what's easy to learn, what's easy to retain. You have to remember that a lot of the individuals that would use this in a CQB environment do not have the time to spend 4 years in some martial art to get really, really good. It's my job to train them in a very short amount of time. And the entire purpose is just to get them back into the fight as quickly as possible. And so I have to utilize their violence, and I have to utilize the kit that they already have on them so that they can do their job, right? Which is shooting bad guys in the face. And that's basically what I do as far as training people. If you disagree with anything I said, then please throw it down. I would love to have a conversation. I usually draw a lot of information on what I am going to videotape next based off of how you guys are responding. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.